Hi, this is Nimal Kunath from Nutanix. In this video, we will see how an OpenShift container platform cluster can be quickly deployed on the Nutanix Cloud Platform using the Assisted Installer method of installation. The Assisted Installer is a SaaS service offered by Red Hat that provides installation functionality as a service. This is available on the Nutanix Cloud Platform starting from OpenShift Container Platform 4.12. It offers an intuitive web interface to carry out the installation and choose a Nutanix cluster to deploy on for a completely integrated workflow. This provides a low barrier to entry for users who are getting started with OpenShift. In addition, it significantly minimizes the deployment prerequisites, like the requirement for external load balancers, greatly enhancing the user experience. We have logged into Red Hat's Hybrid Cloud console. We will select OpenShift and then the Data Center tab. Here we see the option to create a cluster using the Assisted Installer. This brings us to the cluster creation page. We provide relevant cluster details such as the cluster name, the base domain name, and choose the required OpenShift version. We can leave the operators unchecked as we won't be needing them for this installation. Next, we will generate a discovery ISO that the OpenShift nodes will boot from. On selecting the full ISO, a Red Hat Enterprise Linux Core OS live ISO is generated with the embedded ignition config. I will also be adding the SSH public key of my Bastion host, which will be handy if I have to SSH into any of the nodes later. Once the discovery ISO is generated by the assisted service, it will be available for download. Let's copy the URL, which will be used to create a Nutanix image. Now let's switch to the Nutanix Prism console. In Prism, we will be creating a new image. Let's paste the copied image URL and specify it to be of type ISO. After we ensure the image is created, let's go ahead and create the OpenShift nodes. We will create the control plane first. We need a minimum of 3 VMs for the control plane, with each VM configured to have a maximum of 4 vCPU and 16 gig memory. We will be attaching the ISO as well as an additional SCSI disk that will store the installation files. Choose the right IPAM-enabled network the VMs will be connected to. Note that we have selected the VMs to boot in UEFI mode, but you can use legacy BIOS mode as well. Note that if legacy BIOS is selected, you will need to change the boot order of the VM during the installation process. Now let's go ahead and create the VMs. After this, we will be creating 3 worker machine VMs. Now this process will be very similar to the previous step, with the only difference being that these VMs will have 2 vCPU and 8 gig memory as a minimum. After these VMs are created as well, let's go ahead and power them on. Now let's switch back to the OpenShift console. Shortly after, all the OpenShift nodes will be discovered here. Now this is made possible by an agent that automatically runs on each node that contacts the Assisted Installer SaaS service via REST API and performs the discovery. We will check the box to integrate the OpenShift cluster with Nutanix. This enables auto-scaling of the cluster via Machine API. Under storage, we see that the status is ready. Let's proceed further. In the networking section, we will choose OVN, which is a default networking plugin from OpenShift 4.12. We notice that the machine network has already been selected for us. Let's enter the API and the ingress web in the respective fields. Finally, if all the validations have passed, we can begin the cluster installation. One of the control plane nodes will be selected as the bootstrap node. We see the status is preparing for installation now, and this will be updated as the installation progresses. After around 40 to 45 minutes, the installation completes. Now the web console URL to access the OpenShift cluster will be displayed and the login credentials will be conveniently available as well. Let's log into the cluster with these credentials. Great, we can see that the infrastructure provider is Nutanix and the OpenShift version is 4.12.13. That's it for today. For additional information on installing the CSA operator and learn how OpenShift can leverage the Nutanix data services, don't forget to try out the Red Hat test drive. Thank you for watching.